Hello everyone. Today I'm going to give you an introduction to Power BI and share how you can create your very first Power BI report. First of all, in order to be able to do this, you will need Power BI Desktop, which I have downloaded from the Microsoft App Store. So here is my Power BI Desktop. All you have to do is log into Microsoft App Store and download Power BI Desktop onto your machine. You can either use a 30-day trial version, or if you have a license, then you can obviously use that. As soon as you open up Power BI Desktop, you will get this little prompt. You can close that out, and this is how the workspace looks like. Now, there is also something known as Power BI Service. The difference between the two are several, but the basic being Power BI Desktop is like your own canvas where you design your reports, and Power BI Service is when you're done with your desktop report, you can publish it to the server so that it can be shared with other people. To begin with, I think Power BI Desktop is just a lot simpler because it keeps the workspace local. So there are several steps for creating a first project. Generally, we can divide the steps into connecting to a data source. Obviously, when you want to create reports, you need a data set. So the first step would be to connect to a data source. Once you have a data source, you need to clean and shape your data. That is done using the Power Query Editor, which we'll be seeing in some time. Once your data is ready, you will create visuals, which you see here, that you can use in your reports. And the final step is to share your report with people, with users. So let's look at it step by step. Although you can connect to any data source, it could be an Excel or any database. For this example, I'm going to be connecting to Dynamics Online, which is Microsoft Dynamics 365 if you are familiar. So all I did is I just registered for a trial version of Microsoft Dynamics, which gives me 30 days to use it. And it also has some test data in it that I'm going to be using for this session. So the first step, as I said, is to connect data. You will see here two icons, get data and recent sources. So the first step is get data. Let's connect to a data source. When you click on this, you will see several options. Excel, these are some of the options. If you have a simple Excel sheet, you could connect to that. I'm just going to click on more and see what other options are available. So as I scroll down here, I see Microsoft Dynamics Online. This is my source. So I click connect. Now it's going to ask me for the web API URL. Every instance of Dynamics has its own web API URL, which you can get by the customization section in Dynamics 365. I have already copied mine. And then I'm going to paste that web API URL here and say OK. Now Power BI Desktop will attempt to connect to Dynamics 365 Online. There you go. Now the first thing it's trying to do is, here it has established connection and it's showing me all the tables that I have at my disposal that I can use as my data set. For the purpose of this session, I'm going to use a simple table called opportunities. So this is a search box, which if you know your data set name exactly, you can type that or you can type a search string. So let's say I'm looking for opportunities table. So I'm typing OPPOR and it shows me several tables that have OPPOR in its name. Here is the opportunities table that I'm interested in. So as soon as I select that, it gives me a preview here. The preview shows all the different columns that are there in that table, just in case I wanted to verify if this is the table that I'm looking for, or maybe by looking at the preview, I decide that it's a different table. So that's how the preview could be useful. but in this case, this is the table I'm looking for. So I could at this point do one of two things. Either I go ahead and load the table, in which case it will attempt to load the entire table from Dynamics 365, or I could edit it before loading it and only select the columns that I want. If you have a large amount of data, it makes sense to edit it before loading. But if the data set is not that large, you can go ahead and load it, and you have plenty of opportunities to edit your data set after loading as well. So I'm just going to go ahead and load the table. It's loading the data to a data model. So now you see there are several sections here that you can get familiar with. These are the fields. It shows you which table that you're connected to and all the fields that are there in that table. The visualization section we will use later when we are ready with our data set and ready to create reports. That's when we'll use the visualization. And in general, you will notice that there are these three icons on the left. The first icon is the reports one, which is used while you're creating visuals. The second one is of interest to us right now. This is the data. This is the data icon. And the third one is a relationship. So if you have multiple tables, you could build relationships between those tables. So in this case, I clicked on data and it is showing me all the columns that I have in this table. What I have found is you can either click on one column here and say remove that particular column, or you could, oh, I'm sorry, you have to first load the Power Query editor. So this is just showing you the different columns, and you see this button here called edit queries. So this is where is our second step. The first step we already saw was connecting to the data, and the second step would be to shape or transform that data. So now I've loaded all the columns, and maybe this is too much noise for me. Maybe there are too many columns here, and I don't want to see all these columns. I just want to see the columns that I'm going to be needing for my report. So that's where I open the Power Query Editor. That's what it's called. So you go to this Edit Queries, and it'll open up a new window called Power Query Editor. Now here, let's get familiar with this Power Query Editor here. On the left, it shows the name of the table. If there are multiple tables, then it will show all the tables here. In the middle section, you have the various columns. You have several icons here on the top. And then on the right is what is known as the query settings. And the way this Power Query Editor works is it essentially records every step that you do on the right. And then each time you load your data model, it's going to go through these applied steps and make sure that your data model is the way that you like. So here is where I was saying that either you can select, let's say I don't want this column, customer pain points. So I can select that and just remove that column. I can also click on multiple columns at the same time and remove. However, if you have too many columns, it can get very tedious to try and scroll and remove the columns that you don't want. Instead, what you can do is just say choose columns. And then it'll load all the columns that are there in your table. So just uncheck everything, and then basically you're starting a clean canvas. You can select whichever fields that you want. And if you don't know the names, you can search for it here. So here, let's say I'm looking at the opportunity name. I'm going to select a bunch of fields that I'm familiar with and can use for this report. So let's say I'm going to use the status code. See what else can I use here. Sales stage, budget amount, who has created the opportunity, the account that the opportunity is related to, created on, let's say, what else? Owner of the opportunity, description, close date, I'm just randomly selecting some fields that I'm already familiar with in Dynamics that I could use to build some sort of a report on opportunities. State code. I'll be careful and not select too many. Then actual value. Then let's say I want the account and I don't know the name of the fields. Oh, I already selected the account. What else is there? And you can always just say okay. So now you see it will only show you those fields. And let's say you forgot a field, you can always go back and keep adding and removing columns as and when you please. All right, let's say I'm just going to add these for now, and if we need some more fields, we can come back to it. So now I have removed certain columns, or rather I have selected to keep only few columns. Once you are ready with your data model, you can go ahead and apply it. So either you can do close and apply. And you will notice that the second window that was open, the query editor closes out and it applies the changes that you just made to your data model. So let's wait for that to load. So now you see all those columns are gone and you have only the columns that you selected. At any point, if you want to go back to the Power Query Editor to add or remove columns, you can click again, Edit Queries, and go back. So as I was saying, in the right hand side, you see these applied steps. This is where it records what actions you're performing on your data model. So we removed, the first step that I did was I showed you how to remove one single column. So it recorded that. And then the next step is we removed other columns. So each time the data model loads, it goes through these series of steps in order to prepare the data model the way you had saved. So now I go back to the Power BI desktop, and here is our data model with just the fields that we want. So this would be our second step of shaping the data. Again, as I said, at any point you can come back and keep adding either more tables or more columns from the same table. But let's say we are for now done with step 2, which was transforming our data. Now we are ready to create our first basic report. So let me go here. This is the report section. I'm not using the relationship right now because we only have one table loaded. So there is no need for creating any relationships. After we create our first report, I can show you how you can create relationship with another table. But let's go ahead and create our first report. In Power BI, reports are also called visuals, or one report can have multiple visuals. So here you see the different types of visuals that are available to you. Let me pick a very basic visual called stacked column chart. So I click on that and it shows the visual here. Now in the report, before we go ahead and create the report, let me point out how the overall alignment is of the report section. Once you click on a visual, here under the visualization section, there are 3 icons that you see. The first one, this is where you will drag and drop fields from your data model to build reports. The second one is essentially to format the look and feel of your visual. There are several options available to you. And then the final tab, which I haven't really used much, is analytics. So Power BI generates analytics in the background automatically. As I said, I haven't used this much. So for our basic session, let's just focus on how to build the report and then how to format it. So from the fields that I have, let's say I want to look at what is the sales stage at each sales stage, how much dollar amount is available on the opportunities. So in this case, I'm going to drag and drop, let's say, the estimated value into the value area. And I can make this a little bit bigger. So you see here it has automatically applied that to the visual. And then let's say we add the sales stage So you see now I cannot find the axis. That's because I haven't clicked on the visual. So when you are working with visuals, you have to make sure that you click on the visual and then you can see what you had applied on the value. So let's say I'm going to drag and drop the sales stage to the axis. So now it's showing me 0, 1, 2, 3. These are the different sales stages in our data model, and it's showing the value of it. So it's in 20 million, 40 million, what is the value at each sales stage. This is a very basic thing. Now let's look at some ways that we can format this. We may want to display the value here. So for that, you could click on this and say data labels on. So now it shows me in millions the data value. There are other formatting options like unit. So if you expand each of these, you can change the color. By it's set to auto, which means automatically it's putting it in millions. Let's say I want it in like thousands or none. That will just give me the whole number. So in this case, let's just say auto, and it shows you in millions the amount. You could also apply other, going back here, what else is there? You can apply legends. So let's say you want to color code based on the status. So you, now it's, and then it's displaying the legend here. Again, anything that you want to format, you can go back here and say I want the legend to appear in the right hand side instead. So it moves the legend. Let's keep it at top. So here again, not very helpful, the description is not there, so the data only has 0, 1 and 2. So it shows the state code and what's the dollar amount. So you can play around with multiple fields here. Drag and drop is, it's very simple. Click on a visualization first, it shows you the visual, and then you drag and drop based on what applies to that visual. You can drag and drop fields into your report area. Now also, let's say we want to give a title here. So you see the title field, you go here and you can give opportunity value by sales stage. And let's say I want the font to be black. You can increase, you can give a background color if that applies. You can increase, you can do a bunch of things on the formatting side. Even on the values, if you want to format it, you can format that. So let's say the data labels, you can format the labels, or you want to format the value itself. Just to increase the text size, you can make that bigger. Let me do the same thing on the y-axis. So you can play around with a lot of formatting here. So I just made it a little bit bigger, the font size, and this is how it's looking like. Now remember, you can also add multiple visuals to the same page, and that can make it look like a dashboard. Before we go there, let me also show you filters. Now, there is a new preview feature in Power BI desktop. So you see here the filters are there, but these are very basic and they're not very fancy looking. So let me go ahead and show you how you can activate the new filter preview option. You click on File, Options and Settings, Options. And here under Report Settings, I don't see it here. Oh, sorry, under Preview Features, New Filter Experience. So let's load that. But for that I need to restart, it says. So let me save this. Anything that you save in Power BI, it's going to save as a .pbix file that can be shared, and if the other person also has Power BI desktop, then it can be opened up on their machine as well. So let's say opportunities, let's call this opportunities. and save it. So the reason why I'm now closing it and opening it is so that I can show you the preview feature. So here is the file. Let me open it back up. So each time it loads, it tries to initialize the data model. All right. Let me see if it. So now you click on report settings. Where is it? I think I already loaded it. I can't seem to load the new filter experience, but that's all right. You can try that out, but I'll just show you how you can add filters. So we added a legend here for 0, 1, 2. Let's say I want to filter my report by the same thing. So there are 3 types of filters. You have visual filters, you have page level filters, and report level filters. So the visual filter only applies to that one visual. And if there were multiple visuals, then you can have page level filters that if you use that filter, it applies to all the visuals in that page. And you could have multiple pages within a Power BI desktop file. So if you have a report level filter, then if you use that filter, it applies to all the pages of that Power BI file. So let's say I'm going to go ahead and add a state code as a filter. So I put it as a page level filter. There are multiple filtering options. It says advanced filtering, basic filtering. So advanced filtering lets you do text filters like is greater than, is less than, and then you have the basic filtering. It shows all the different values, and let's say I just want to look at state code 1. So then it filters my visual. If I want 1 and 2, it filters based on that. So this is how you can use filters in your report or visual. Now, I think we have successfully created our first basic report. Again, the steps for doing that was connecting to a data source, creating our data model using the Power Query editor and having only the columns that we want. Finally, creating the report, use one of the visualizations here, and then it's all drag and drop the fields. This is just the first basic report. In our next series, we will see how you can enhance your report by connecting multiple tables and establishing relationships between those, and also using DAX functions. DAX stands for data analysis expressions. So you can create measures and you can look up values from one table to the other and do a lot of advanced things that we can see in the next video. Thank you, everyone.